Most people think a civil war starts with a bang. You probably imagine a movie scene where tanks roll down Main Street, fighter jets scream overhead, and suddenly everyone is wearing cool tactical gear and picking sides. You think you get a push notification that says, "War started, good luck, but that is Hollywood garbage. That is a fantasy that is going to get you killed." Real civil conflict doesn't start like an explosion. It starts like a cancer. It starts like a slow leak in a tire that you ignore until you're doing 70 miles an hour on the highway and the rim hits the pavement. By the time you see tanks in the street, the war has been going on for 6 months. You just didn't notice because you were too busy arguing on the internet or trying to pay your electric bill. History tells us, from Sarajevo to Syria, from Belfast to Kigali, that the signs are always there. They are boring, they are bureaucratic, and they are happening right in front of your face. Today we are going to stop pretending that civilization is a concrete bunker that can't break. We are going to look at the structural cracks that appear before the collapse. We are going to look at the warning signs that your neighbors are ignoring, the math behind social breakdown, and exactly when you need to stop waiting and start moving. The first sign is what historians call the normalization of violence. This is the boiling frog principle, but for street fights. In a stable society, if someone punches a cashier at a grocery store, it makes the evening news. Everyone is shocked. Police show up in 3 minutes. In a pre-conflict society, that same punch happens and nobody stops shopping. You step over the glass, you avert your eyes. The police take 2 hours to arrive, or they don't come at all, because they don't want to get involved. When random violence becomes background noise, your society has effectively lost its immune system. The social contract, the invisible agreement that says, "I won't kill you if you don't kill me," is already shredded. You are just waiting for the official memo. This leads us directly into the second sign, which is the geographic self-sorting. This is subtle, but if you look at a map of your city, you can see it happening. Humans are tribal animals. When we get scared, we retreat to people who look like us, talk like us, and vote like us. In the early stages of collapse, you start seeing for sale signs popping up in specific clusters. People aren't moving for better schools, they are moving because they feel unsafe around them. Neighborhoods that used to be mixed become purple, then they become deep red or deep blue. This is dangerous because it turns city streets into borders. Once a neighborhood becomes a monoculture, it becomes a fortress. If you are the only family on the block who doesn't fit the new tribal identity, you aren't a neighbor anymore. You are a hostage in waiting. Let's talk about the infrastructure stutter. This is the sign that the system is running out of money and competence. In a functioning country, the power goes out during a storm and comes back in 4 hours. In a pre-Civil War country, the power goes out on a sunny Tuesday for no reason, and it stays off for 3 days. The water starts tasting a little metallic. The potholes turn into craters that swallow cars, and the city crews just put a cone in front of them and walk away. This is what we call state capacity failure. The government stops being a service provider and starts being a protection racket. When the traffic lights stop working and nobody fixes them, that is the state admitting it has lost control of the physical environment. If the government can't keep the lights on, they definitely cannot keep you safe from a mob. Now look at the economy, not the stock market. The stock market is a hallucination for rich people. Look at the price of bread and fuel. Civil unrest is almost mathematically tied to the price of calories. There is a specific threshold where the average person spends more than 40% of their income on food. Once you cross that line, riots aren't a possibility, they are a statistical certainty. But in a pre-conflict zone, you see the rise of the parallel economy. This is when the official currency becomes a joke. You see shops accepting dollars, euros, gold, or barter. Instead of the local money, you see black markets forming for basics like medicine and baby formula. When the guy at the bodega stops taking credit cards and starts asking for trade goods, the war has already started economically. The shooting is just the final formality. Another massive red flag is the dehumanization of language. Words matter not because of feelings, but because of psychology. You cannot convince a normal human being to shoot his neighbor. It goes against millions of years of evolution. So before you can have a civil war, you have to hack the human brain. You have to convince people that their neighbors aren't humans. They are vermin, cockroaches, traitors, or an infection. Listen to the radio, listen to the podcasts. Are they calling the opposition wrong? Or are they calling them evil? Are they saying we need to win the election, or are they saying we need to eradicate this threat? Once the language shifts from political disagreement to biological sanitation, the genocide requires zero additional convincing. The mental trigger has already been pulled. Then there is the selective enforcement of the law. This is the most terrifying phase for anyone paying attention. This is when the police stop being neutral referees and start playing for a team. You see a riot where one group burns down a building and gets arrested, and the next day another group burns down a building and the police take selfies with them. When the law is applied based on who you are rather than what you did, the legal system is dead. It is now just a weaponized bureaucracy. This forces you to join a tribe for protection. You can't rely on 9/11 because 9/11 checks your voting record. Before sending a squad car, you have to rely on your local militia or neighborhood watch. And once you owe your safety to a militia, you are a soldier whether you enlisted or not. Pay attention to the brain drain. Smart people are like rats on a sinking ship. They are the first to leave because they have the resources to see the water rising. Look at the hospitals. Are the best doctors retiring early or moving to a different career? Look at the universities. Are the professors taking sabbaticals and not coming back? When the intellectual and wealthy class starts quietly liquidating assets and moving their families abroad, they aren't going on vacation. They are escaping. They have inside information, or at least better intuition than you do. If the rich people in your city are selling their houses and renting instead, they are preparing to run. You should be packing your bags too. Let's talk about the lone wolf frequency. In a stable society, you get one crazy person doing something horrific every few years. In a pre-collapse society, the frequency tightens. It happens every month, then every week. These aren't coordinated attacks, yet they are the sparks flying off a grinding gear. It's stochastic terrorism. Random acts of violence generated by the static electricity of a society rubbing against itself. When you stop being surprised by mass casualty events, when you start planning your grocery trips around riot season, you are already living in a war zone. You just haven't admitted it yet. So what is the survival strategy here? It is not digging a hole in your backyard and hiding in it. That is a grave, not a plan. The strategy is mobility and neutrality. You need to be a gray man on a strategic level. You need to not look like a combatant. If you have political bumper stickers on your car, scrape them off. If you have a flag on your porch, take it down. In a civil conflict, being loud makes you a target. You want to be the person nobody remembers. You want to be boring. You also need a tripwire. You need to define a specific event that will make you leave, not when it gets bad, because bad is subjective, and your brain will normalize the horror. To keep you comfortable, you need a hard line. If the power is out for more than 48 hours, we leave. If there is a shooting within 3 blocks of our house, we leave. If the price of gas hits $10, we leave. Write it down. When that tripwire is crossed, you do not negotiate with yourself. You do not wait to see if it gets better. You execute. The plan's speed is life. The people who died in Sarajevo were the ones who waited to see if the siege was real. The people who lived were the ones who saw the roadblocks going up and drove through them while the cement was still wet. You need to diversify your assets. If all your money is in a bank account, that can be frozen by the government or wiped out by a cyber attack. You are broke. You need physical assets. Cash is king for the first month, but after that it's toilet paper, precious metals, trade goods, medicine, ammunition. These are the currencies of conflict. But more importantly, you need skills in a civil war. A plumber is worth more than a stockbroker. A medic is worth more than a lawyer. If you can fix things or heal people, you are an asset to any group. If you just move numbers around on a screen, you are dead weight. Finally realize that the timeline is not on your side. Collapse is logarithmic. It starts very slowly, then it happens all at once. The slide from political tension to checkpoints on the highway can happen in a weekend. Most people suffer from normalcy bias, the belief that tomorrow will be roughly the same as today. Because yesterday was fine. This is a fatal evolutionary glitch. History is not a straight line, it is a cliff. You are standing at the edge of that cliff looking at your phone. Put the phone down, look at the street, look at the prices, listen to how people are talking to each other. The warning signs are flashing neon red. The system is fragile, it is held together by cheap energy trust and just in-time delivery trucks. Remove any one of those and the whole thing comes down. Civil war isn't about armies fighting for freedom. It is about resources, fear, and the breakdown of order. It is ugly, it is hungry, and as local your job isn't to be a hero. Your job is to survive the transition. Don't be the frog in the pot waiting for the bubbles. Be the one who jumps out while the water is still warm. Because once it starts boiling, it's already too late.